Hey everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode with me, William Wallace. Today I'm with State Senator Heather Cloud, and she's in District 28. I had to double check there because I always get confused sometimes, and I didn't want to do that. Senator, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
Oh no, I appreciate it. I've been watching you on Facebook and watching, all the things that you're working on, and I've been watching your bills go through the legislature, and I'm really impressed by what I see. And so
you.
I wanted to give you a chance to introduce yourself to the people of the state and see if they'll like you as much as what I hear other people like you up here and how much I've liked you for watching what you're doing. It's real positive, and I want to point that out in the beginning. If you watch some of my other questions and other interviews, I've actually said some things that maybe have like are there gloom and doom maybe, but in talking with Senator Cloud, I've reworded a lot of those questions because of her positive attitude and her positive actions. And I'm going to grab onto that positive nature with these questions, and I think you'll pick up on her positive attitude also and some of the good things that she's doing.
Thank you for that.
Well, no, I know I really do appreciate what you're doing, and so let's talk about that. But before that, I want people to tell people where your district is.
I would consider it the heart of Louisiana. So I'm from Turkey Creek. If you shot an arrow at the center of the state, you'd hit Turkey Creek. And we actually have the geographical marker for the center of the state. But as a state, and I was the mayor. I was the mayor of Turkey Creek for 8 years.
Oh, were you really? Okay.
Yes. But so I'm hometown proud, but I represent a really diverse and beautiful area of the state with a lot of piney woods, a lot of timber industry. In Avoyelles, we have 3 rivers that run through Avoyelles Parish. So I represent Evangeline, Avoyelles, Allen, portions of St. Landry, and a little bit of Acadia parishes. And you're in my Senate office right here at the Capitol. And I'm so proud of my district. I'm proud of the industry and the people of my district. My office is full of pictures, and of course my horse. I love my horses. I'm an avid horseback rider. But if you look at these pictures right here up at the top, that's in Evangeline Parish, this picture here, and it's the old bank, Evangeline Bank, and it's a beautiful restaurant. So if you're in Evangeline and you're looking for good cuisine, it's a great restaurant, Cafe Evangeline. And then this is the Liberty Theater, which is in St. Landry Parish in Eunice. And
you just did a post on that.
I'm currently working on some revitalization dollars. It's a world-renowned concert hall that's been shuttered, and an economic driver for the area. And I'm sure you know, I just so believe in fostering the entrepreneurial spirit of local job creators, and that's what this venue does. And right here, this is in Avoyelles Parish, and I'm actually driving this harvester.
Oh, you're driving it?
I'm driving it in this picture. I had a friend take a picture, and I was actually driving the harvester at the time. And then at the top, this is the Elizabethtown Hall in Allen Parish. These are some more pictures.
Do you know where I'm from originally? I'm originally from Kentucky, but a small town called Elizabethtown.
I've actually been there.
Oh, have you really?
Yes,
okay.
I've been to Elizabethtown, Kentucky. This is in Avoyelles Parish. This is Spring Bayou, amazing reservoir that I am working along with the state representative there they're losing a lot of water there. It's basically drying up.
Who's that? Representative?
It's Representative Darrell Dizitel.
Okay.
And so Spring Bayou in Avoyelles Parish is actually where the phrase sportsman's paradise for Louisiana was coined because of Spring Bayou.
Oh, wow. I didn't know
we're
that.
working to save this reservoir with some wonderful community activists in Avoyelles. And then this is also in Avoyelles. It's such a unique place. This is a pig roast.
Oh, wow.
A pig roast.
I love it.
So these churches, the Catholic churches there, they have fall festivals, and it's just extravagant and is so indicative of their culture, their cultural heritage there. So I always invite my friends to go to their fall fest because there's nothing like it.
I'm gonna have that on my radar. So when I start traveling next,
I'll have to get a bus and bring all of my friends to visit. Yes. So that's where I'm from.
I like you said, the center of the state, and you put an arrow in it. So I'm picturing the target. So that way, and because you're there, it makes people, I guess, realize how much more important it is.
And it is expansive. So if I would leave from the far reaches of east of Avoyelles and travel to the far west in Allen, it would take me about 2.5 hours.
Oh, wow.
So just to traverse my district and be with my people, which I, pride myself in being with the people.
I've noticed on Facebook how
I
much you're
love
with
my
everybody.
people.
Yeah.
Yes. I've got a lot of miles on my car.
Well, this is important things to know because it shows how much you care about your district and the people that are in it. We've said that a couple of times, I know, but I like to point that out because that's important, I think, when it comes to people knowing about what legislation you create.
Yes.
They know what's in your heart. So when you create legislation, they know that you're compassionate.
Yes.
About it. So what makes up your district? It kind of sounds like it's a more of a rural farmland area.
We are very rural. We are very rural. So there's farmland and timber, fisheries, the rivers, and we have aquaculture, a little bit of everything. We have some industry as well, some related to the oil and gas industry. So we have a very diverse economic activity there, but we need a lot more. As in most rural communities need more, and so we're actively looking for more economic opportunities.
Well, always, because I love hearing that, because when I hear a representative, senator, or representative talk about bringing opportunity to their state, or their districts, it's important because it helps our state.
Yeah.
And not only that, but if you're in a rural area, you need some unique little things to help out your districts to keep them alive. So it doesn't become one of those communities where you're driving through and you see empty businesses.
We do, and also as representatives of the people, we need to encourage our people that when the brick and mortars pop up, locals, not big business, but brick and mortars, mom and pops, that we need to invest ourselves into those businesses, because once they're gone, we've seen so many businesses shuttered because of COVID and the economic downturn, and so they need us.
Yeah.
They need us more than ever. And I'm a small business woman, so.
That was about my next question for you, was that, a lot of people don't realize that our state senators, our state representatives, people that are up here in Baton Rouge, it's technically a part-time job, air quotes, but it really isn't. I mean, I see how hard you all work during the year.
Yeah.
So what is your background before you became a state senator?
Well, I started out graduate of LSUA, rural college.
Hence the tractor driving.
Yes, in education. So I'm an elementary school teacher, and I have an add-on in early childhood. Did that for a little while, and my husband is our family's third generation in trucking, so transportation, aggregates, heavy equipment, and so forth. And so our business just kind of started to develop, and that took me away from education and more in handling, became his secretary, his contract negotiator, and his accountant, and all of those things. And so for the first 4 years of both of my children's lives, I stayed at home. I worked from home. While they would nap, I'd do all the bookkeeping and make all the calls. And I committed to being there when my kids were, when they were little. Once they ended up in preschool or kindergarten, then I ran for mayor of Turkey Creek. And there's
Turkey Creek.
a good reason why. There's always a reason why.
How big is Turkey Creek?
Don't laugh. So we have around 400 registered voters.
Yeah.
But what happens is we're so rural, and there's hunting all in our area, that no one wants to be incorporated into the town, because they want to be able to hunt without any kind of shooting restrictions and so forth. So we're like brimming over on all sides, and those are our people as well. They are Turkey Creek. But Turkey Creek, as small as it is, and we do have our own exit. We have an exit right off the interstate. As small as we are, we own one of the largest water systems by pipe miles in the state of Louisiana. And so that, as my, in my capacity as mayor, that was where the brunt of my duties were, actually being the CEO and CFO of a major utility system. And that's what drove me at first. I know that's going to be one of your questions.
Yeah, I was asking you next.
How'd you end up in public office? What led to that? Being a mom, being invested in my community, we had major water system infrastructure issues, and it was hindering the production of safe drinking water for our families.
Wow.
And it was all stemming from hundreds of thousands of dollars going missing from the proprietary fund, from the water department, basically vanished. So the Louisiana legislative auditor got involved and they said, oh, all of this money went missing, but we don't know exactly where. The fact of the matter is the money wasn't there to secure our drinking water. And so I am very, very passionate about water infrastructure. And I'm just that kind of person.
But you know what I'm noticing from this, is that you didn't blame. You didn't just say, this is somebody, you didn't place a blame. You actually took action and took it from yourself. Here you were, building a small business with your husband, you're being a mom, you had your own career to think of, and you kind of basically put that onto the side. I know you probably still kept in with your family and stuff like that because knowing the person that you are.
Yes.
But you took it upon yourself to really help your community, and took your passion to help your community to solve that problem instead of just blaming people for it.
I feel like that's just who I am, and I think there's probably a lot of your listeners right now that know that there's problems within their communities and they want to get involved and they're just wondering, can I? Am I capable? Should I? And I say yes, I did.
Yeah.
I know our family, everyone would sit around, the dinner table and we would talk about the problems in our community, and my family, the elders and the patriarchs in our family, I'm like, okay, you're talking, but where's the action?
Right.
And nobody would take action, and they had legitimate complaints and reasons for taking action, but they just didn't. They chose to sit back and complain, and God bless them.
Exactly.
And I'm just not that kind of. I said, well, I'm not going to complain if I'm going to do something about it.
Right, exactly.
So I ran, I won, became mayor of that precious little town, and found problems that went on and took corrective action. And this girl made some people mad in taking action because I stopped some loopholes and tied up some areas where there was fraud and waste and theft, and it upset some people. And that's
Right.
4 years later, those people launched a vote buying scheme against me.
Oh, yeah. Tell us about that.
Yes.
Okay.
So they actually bought votes against me in 2014 to try to get me out of office. It was the same people that were involved in some of the issues with our town, the financial issues. And
so basically taking the
won.
taxpayer money that they found the loopholes and they diverted to buy votes to take out the person.
No, they use their own funds
Okay.
to buy votes. To buy votes. So actually, if you Google my name, Heather Miley Cloud, I actually ended up having to sue the Secretary, and I'm not a lawsuit kind of girl, but I had to sue the Secretary of State for a fair election. They bought the votes of mentally handicapped people, and unfortunately, though mentally handicapped people, those are the most vulnerable to vote buying schemes.
Right.
Because they're gullible, number
Right.
one. And then if you need a credible witness in court, they're mentally handicapped. So they're like perfect candidates for vote buying schemes. And I started I have to tell you, I'm going to jump ahead and I'm going to jump back. So that's how I started working in the legislature after I ended up successfully challenging this election fraud and calling for another election, winning the seat back. I started working within the legislature. The first piece of legislation, Congressman Mike Johnson then was a state representative, a dear friend of mine. He carried my first bill, and that basically increased the fines and penalties for those that prey upon intellectually disabled people during vote buying schemes.
I like how that's worded. It's it's very respectful, and it's also very caring. And I like that. That's good legislation because you're right. It helps let the people that would prey upon those kind of people in the future, whether it's elections or whatever, know that hey, there's somebody watching out for these people.
Absolutely. We want to preserve their right to vote and take part in this democratic process, our free and fair elections. But at the same time, we have to realize that they're a population that we have to be very careful and protect them from bad actors.
So you won the seat back, and when they had the right number of votes, and they did a recount, which I like because in today's narrative or today's world or today's news, it's all we hear about are fair elections, and you actually fought for fair elections
and won.
and got it
Yes.
and proved that you actually did indeed win the election. I like that.
Yes, sir.
That's not only a good small town story, that's a good national story too.
Yes, sir. A lot of my legislation through the years, dating back to that incident and up to now, has been geared on tightening up the election code. Not only corrective, I believe
Right.
that legislation is corrective. I believe that legislation can also be preventive. And
Okay.
so I've come at election integrity and all sorts of other issues as from both a corrective standpoint, things that I know exist because I could write a book. In
Yeah.
fact, Congressman Johnson, when he presented my first bill, he said this could be a John Grisham novel. I mean, the things that happened in little bitty Turkey Creek, it just would blow your mind. It would take hours to tell.
I can see it now. The name of the book is Turkey Creek. It sounds, a small
Dun,
town.
dun, dun.
I like that. So you won, and then you I guess you refixed what was rebroken. So you won. You fixed it. They got you out by a fraudulent election. You paved the way to a good election, and you won, and then you refixed everything, I guess. Or
Sure. I
and,
made it
and,
I became a student of water aquifers and water system and wastewater infrastructure.
and good government and good
absolutely.
spending and good and everything like
A
that.
good student of the Larson Act because I didn't want to get myself, which is the law that guides municipal government. So I learned a lot through all of that, and actually we paid off a lot of our assets and I got our town out of debt and put up money for a rainy day fund. So I learned so much from those experiences, and in that time I opened a restaurant at the same time that I became mayor because our town is so small and we needed an economic driver and a job
Right.
creator. So my husband and I we had a little piece of land, we built a restaurant, opened it up, and our people started working there. So it exists there today. I sold it a couple of years ago because here I am.
Yeah.
And it's now DeVille's Diner in Turkey Creek. So
So why did you run for state senator?
it's always been why. I've never been one looking for what's my next political move. It's always been it's almost like a do or die situation, whether it's water, whether it's election fraud. In this case, I had always, since the election fraud and started working with the legislature, I'm like, I may actually have to run for office eventually to continue to work on election fraud. But I didn't know if I was ready or not. I knew in 2019 when our trucking company we couldn't afford insurance anymore. We basically it's a big
Right.
hot button topic of mine is the high cost of auto and commercial auto insurance here in the state of Louisiana, and our cost of insurance has been going up $10,000 and $20,000 a year. 10 and 20. We're little.
And you're a little small
business.
truck, and $10,000 to $20,000 is sometimes when a lot of people, when people see big businesses, they go, "Oh wow, those guys make all kinds of money," and sometimes they don't realize that all those big family-owned businesses only make $10,000 to $20,000 a year. Of
That's
course,
our insurance that
Yeah.
went up $10,000 or $20,000 a year. So we went from starting out $15,000 our total premium for the year to being at $70,000 and $80,000, and it was just basically insurance. Carriers were falling off one by one, and they didn't want to write policies anymore in the state of Louisiana because of the risk here.
Right.
And so I think it just got to a point where we were losing carriers, and in 2019, basically we got a non-renewal notice of no cause of our own.
Right.
They're just saying we're not gonna insure aggregate haulers anymore. And I came face to face with the fact that 3 generations in my husband's family, my husband, my sons, all of us that have invested ourselves
Right.
into growing a business and creating jobs and living the American
Right.
dream, is basically being ripped out from under us because of the cost of insurance and the issues that have led to the cost of insurance being so high. And that was I want to say March or April, and it was okay. Well, I guess I'm going to have to run for Senate and do something about this.
Sometimes, and I know you believe in this too, but sometimes when we ask why, God gives us an answer.
Yes, and I feel like God he's always kind of pushed me, and sometimes he's got to light a fire, and that the fire was lit whenever
He showed you before, but he didn't slap you with the answer
He's been
until
kind of pushing me over the years.
until you get your tax
Yes.
return.
Right.
He used your tax return to slap you and say, this is why.
Right. And the truth is, it's never really been about Heather
Yeah.
Cloud. And it's not been about Heather Cloud's concern for water. It's not been about Heather Cloud's concern for insurance. I'm just one of many that are crying out to him and crying out, period, saying we've got problems. We've got problems with water. We have problems currently in the state of Louisiana with water that
We sure
the
do.
legislature
You're right.
is trying to address. We have problems with elections. We have problems with insurance. So I'm just one, and I experience it personally, and I'm able to carry that torch on behalf of our people here.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. So, and I like how you're able to use a lot of the things that you've learned on a small scale and bring it to a bigger scale.
Yes.
You know, one time I asked a very wealthy person, I said, you know, we talk about money and everything and hard times, because he was going through some hard times in his business, but he made a lot of money. He says, you know, it's just a little bit more, it's just another zero. It's just more zeros. So using that analogy, you've taken the concept of from a small town in Turkey Creek, you know, and with the problems, and you fix problems on a small scale, and you fix problems on a, you know, the money problems, and now it's just adding those zeros on a bigger scale.
It's all relative.
It's all that same principle of being fiscally responsible and being a good public servant and caring about people, and now you're just doing it on a larger scale.
That's right.
I like that. Well, let's talk about this session about the positive things that are going on fiscally in this session that you're working on, your legislation and some other things that you're working with that you're most passionate about on fixing, using all the things you've learned to
Right, to redirect.
to fix
yes.
and redirect our fiscal policies.
Absolutely.
That fiscal word kind of is a tongue twister sometimes.
You used an F. So
yeah.
sometimes I hear physical and I'm like, I used to say physical, and then I learned, oh, it's an F.
It's an F.
It's fiscal. Yeah, so to insurance, I mean, last year in our first regular session, we brought a piece of tort reform that has, and we're starting to see the fruit of it, that has really change some of the problems in a positive way that we've had with insurance. So we're chipping away at issues that ail Louisiana. Louisiana.
Exactly.
So that was a great piece, and I hear from insurers that more and more companies are starting to look at Louisiana again. It just takes time. I mean, just because you pass a piece of legislation, it doesn't mean, okay, your problem solved
happen
tomorrow.
overnight. Yeah, exactly.
It takes time. And so we're going to start enjoying the fruit of that labor, no doubt. I think we're starting to now. This session, I was very blessed coming in as a new legislator. You know, I asked to be on Judiciary A, which is a law committee. It's afforded me the opportunity to really learn and grow in the area of law.
Right.
Which is where tort reform took place. And I also had my eyes set on the Senate finance.
Oh, good.
So every which I've been blessed to, I'm the vice chairwoman of Senate Finance, and every dollar for the state of Louisiana from every department and every agency flows through that committee. So to be able to watch the money movement and how these departments and agencies operate, and be able to help them restructure and, you know, tighten their belts, and when they don't want to, sometimes we have to make them.
Right.
To be there and learn and be able to shape our state's budget, especially now.
Right.
Will, at a critical time. I had mentioned to you, this is really a pivotal time for our state, because when Katrina and, you know, Rita came through, a lot of federal dollars came in years ago.
Exactly.
And it grew our state's budget to really a bloated budget because they folded those dollars into the general operating budget.
You're pointing out something that I think is remarkable, and I only want to interrupt you for a second to say this.
Yeah.
A lot of other legislators, we're talking about this COVID money coming in right now, and they're being conscientious about not using it to grow government, but no one's brought up this, and I'm glad that you are. So there's precedent to show in the past by using Katrina dollars that when the federal money came in, that other legislators use it to grow government. And now we're trying to unravel those problems now by not growing government with this COVID money.
Yes.
I want you to continue with that thought.
Yep. So, you know, the dollars came in from the CARES Act last year. We watched them. We were very careful with them. The Senate Finance has to appropriate them out. And then there's been direct dollars that come into like higher ed and the school systems and so forth. Well, I wish I would have thought about this last year. but I thought about it this year. Within our budget, I've made a proposal, and I'm waiting. We're supposed to get the budget next week. I'm waiting to see it. I propose that all those dollars this year don't just sit within each agency within our operating budget,
Right.
that we extract them out and create a subset.
Okay.
Because whenever you're planning the budget, you look at what happens the year before.
Okay. Well,
and then
that's right.
So you base the budget on the year before, and we have to be careful, because if we look at last year, well, there was CARES dollars. Really need to look at the year before,
Right.
To know where we really stand.
Exactly.
And so now this year we have these ARP dollars coming in, and so if we keep, when we're looking back, we're going to be looking back at years that federal dollars flowed into the state, and if we're not careful, we're forgetful people.
Right, exactly.
Right?
There's other elected officials that aren't as considered about tax dollars as people like you are.
Yes, and we may just not look back for enough, and it may just be accidental, and it may be purposeful. But I propose that we created subsets within our budget where we take that out, so we see the true number for each agency,
I like this.
The true what they actually need, what their actual revenue is, separate and apart from federal dollars, and what their expenditures are, separate and apart from federal dollars, and create a subset under that of the federal dollars that have come in for each agency,
Right.
that those dollars and those expenditures. That way, when we're looking back, there's no room for confusion. And so we'll see if that's how it comes over. I think that everybody has kind of embraced that idea. I just want to be really careful, because we're talking millions, billions of dollars.
$13 billion, yeah.
Billions, and I don't know how much more is coming. And so once those dollars are expended, once they're gone, if we don't have our budget, our house in order,
Right.
and we've grown agencies,
Right.
then we're going to have to fund those.
Yeah.
And how do you fund that?
Exactly.
You raise taxes.
Right.
And we don't want to do that.
So I like this forward thinking. So these little subsets that you're talking about, would they be restricted on how they're used? Like they can only be used on one-time expenses, or would there be restrictions on those subsets?
So the subsets, the reason for subsets is basically for identification purposes.
Okay.
The use of those dollars are identified from the federal government within the guidelines of their program. So ARP says we're sending this many dollars for infrastructure. They're sending like 1.8 billion for infrastructure, but they say not just any infrastructure, water, wastewater, and broadband. And so all those dollars are earmarked, and there's perimeters set. So the purpose for me is just future budgetary planning.
I like this. Yeah, this is very unique thinking, and it's that out of the box thinking that our government needs right now, because it's been done the same way for so long, and government's just been growing and growing and growing, and now we're at a point where somebody's got to raise their hand and say, we got to stop. Yeah, great, we got this money, but we gotta think in the future,
Yes.
so that way we don't have this problem with somebody saying, oh, well, we had this much money last year, and your subset kind of says, no. You had that much money, but only this much was what you really had. This is those federal dollars
Yes.
that you just got this, you get to buy the land yap with,
Yeah.
or those extra programs.
There could be, I don't know how many new, hopefully, the Lord will want me here in a few more years, but there's going to be a new crop of legislators coming in, and they may not know how far back to look, and nobody may tell them. So
this
anyway.
earmarks that. This is kind of like
Sets
the opposite.
the tone for the future.
Yeah, I like this, because it kind of is the opposite of the lockbox. The lockbox that nobody can get into, nobody can see, but it's kind of saying, hey, here was the lockbox, but this bill that you're saying opens the lockbox and says, here's what's in it, and here's why it's there, and here's how it got there, and
Right.
leaves a trail.
It does.
Is what I'm trying to get to,
It
I guess.
does.
I like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So what other legislation is kind of like your marquee thinking?
Well, I carried tort last year, tort reform, which is legal reform legislation geared on truth in advertising. I plan to continue. The governor vetoed it. I plan to continue to work on that because I think that, the distortion on what a client actually gets, if a client is awarded $1 million and their an attorney's advertising $1 million, the client didn't really get $1 million.
Right, exactly.
Didn't carry that because the tone of this session is fiscal and there's a lot of work to be done. You get to carry 5 general bills. So you can have fiscal bills and you can have local bills, but you only get 5 general subject matter bills. So my bills, one is I'm a cancer survivor.
Oh.
I don't know if you know,
Okay.
knew that. And so one of my bills is a patient rights bill. So it basically ensures that patients have rights to have their cancer infusion and drug therapy within the hospital system of their choosing for in-network providers. So that just passed through the Senate. We're done in the Senate, just passed through House Committee yesterday. And so what's happening is some insurance companies are creating policies after the contract, the health insurance contract. And so I was a patient at MD Anderson and I had my full scope of treatment there. Now some insurance companies are saying, yeah, we cover MD Anderson, they're in your network, but it's cheaper for you to go around the corner and get your infusion therapy at, I don't know, Billy Bob's Infusion Center. Well, I don't want to leave my team of doctors.
Yeah.
They know me. We make sometimes decisions like in the moment for treatment, and so that's happening. It's really been detrimental and it's hurting patients at the most vulnerable times of their lives. So we're going to pass that. It's going to happen, and the governor's going to sign it.
I like
just
that.
know it.
I like that.
Yeah.
Let's hope he does, because that sounds like something that helps just people when they're going through hard times. But that's a unique, another key to you as a person. And I think that your family and and the good things that you did in Turkey Creek, but during all this time you went through some serious adversity with your health, and you conquered not only this health situation and survived cancer, but you did this while you're doing all these other great things for other people while you had your own fight.
Oh, I look back on it, I'll be monitored forever, as most cancer patients are. But I don't look back on it as a horrible experience. Every experience, even though that they're hard, they have afforded me immeasurable opportunities for growth. And so I often, as a Christian, I think when it's time when we're called home, I want to be able to march in knowing that I am tested and proven.
Right.
So another piece of legislation that I know that you'll like, and I think that your listeners, your watchers, your viewers will like, it's an underappreciated piece. I don't think that anyone really understands the gravity of it yet, and so I'm going to explain it to you. It'll be on the floor Monday in the Senate. What it calls for is auditing of our election processes. So I
will be watching this one.
and it says auditing in the bill description, and so it's easy to dismiss. But right now we are not auditing the processes of elections, like signature verification, ballot security, not just outcomes, not just looking at this many votes. The machine says this many votes. Does it line up with this many signatures? We're going diving deep into how they're processing ballots. The decision making all the way at the precinct level on what ballots they're going to accept and not accept, so that we have some uniformity in rulemaking across the state.
Right.
So it's a risk-based approach. What we're doing is deploying the legislative auditor to go in and look at the state, on the state side, local, all the way down to the precinct level, to see what everyone's doing, how they're doing it, if there's room for bad actors, right? And there is.
And there are bad actors,
yes. Right. And then they'll generate remedies for any problems that they find. This has not been done. The last process audit, I'm going to blow your mind.
I love all these little nuggets. I need a little bell to go off, because whenever there's a good nugget, a piece of information, I call them nuggets, to go off. So go.
Yes, the last election audit that was performed in the state of Louisiana was 20 years ago. 20. And when that happened 20 years ago, the legislative auditor uncovered a scheme going on by an election official. It led to that individual's arrest, incarceration, and eventual conviction. Since then, they haven't...
Do we know a name or?
Jerry Fowler.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a big news story back then. And since then, the book on election processes and risk-based approach to auditing has been closed. Why? I
Yeah.
don't know. And so I'm calling for, we need to start looking at
I
this.
like this.
And what it does is all of these legislators, I have a couple of other pieces of election integrity legislation, but what it does is when we craft a bill in the future, after these audits take place and remedies are disseminated and given to the legislature from the legislative auditor, what we're able to do is bring evidence-based legislation in the future. So whatever they find, they say, yeah, we found a problem at this level, this is the issue. Well, legislators can pinpoint that issue, craft a piece of legislation, sit at that table, and bring an evidence-based piece of legislation to secure our elections in the future.
I love this. This is that forward thinking that I mentioned to earlier. Oftentimes we get complacent, or elected officials get complacent, or government gets complacent, and it's just kind of like, okay, it's going well. And during that process, some bad actor gets in.
Yeah.
But this is the type of legislation that says, no, we're going to review it no matter what.
Yes.
And if there's a problem, it's almost kind of like having an app. I hate doing the air quotes, but it's almost like having an app that can find a problem. Whereas this, if an auditor finds a problem, it triggers a legislative action that helps prevent it from the future in a way that we know that our elections are secure.
Yep. I wrote up my my closing for my statement, and it was trust but verify. Trust but verify. We want to trust that our elections are secure. The Secretary of State says that they're secure, but let's verify that.
Right.
If we're going to encourage our constituents, our people to show up at the polls, we need to tell them, your vote matters, your vote counts, and it's not going to be negated by any bad actors. And I think of this piece of legislation as so many bills are going to be passing through state legislatures across the country, pinpointed or targeted
Right.
at election integrity, and they're going to be shooting these arrows at moving targets, like maybe this is a problem, maybe that's a problem, maybe this is a problem. What I'm saying is, let's get an agency involved and let's see what the problems actually are in Louisiana,
I like that,
and let's shoot directly at that
I love
problem.
that.
Yeah.
I love that. Like I said, this is to give back confidence to the people, because a lot of
Confidence
people, when I
builder.
talk to people all the time, and say, my vote doesn't matter.
Yes.
And I say, well, I like to say, your vote not only matters, but if you don't vote, somebody's going to steal your vote.
Yeah.
And this type of legislation finds the problems.
Yes.
And gets on, and we're finding a little bit more and more of all these other states. I mean, look, Georgia, I like to point out, Georgia said during their presidential election that there weren't any problems. But yet, 2 months later, they said, oh, no, we fixed all the problems through their legislation. This kind of takes a more proactive approach to that.
Yeah, I don't think that there really has been a Secretary of State in the country that have said, oh, we have problems with our elections in the state.
Right.
They
They don't want to admit it, because that's their job on the
that's
line.
their
Right.
job, right.
Yeah.
Most of them are elected. But this has been embraced by the Secretary of State. We worked on it together, to get everybody, make it palatable for everyone, and the legislative auditor. So I spoke to the legislative auditor, and they're just waiting for the bill to pass, and they're ready to get going.
And I like to point out, too, I'll give Kyle Ardwin, talked about, because I know many months ago he was taking some arrows on some issues, and for things that people didn't agree with. But a lot of legislators like yourself stood up and have said, no, we're going to fix this problem. And now everybody seems to be working together in a positive direction for Louisiana. And that's why it takes proactive approaches and people to work together and listen, which I've been seeing. So what other legislation do you want to talk about, or is there another piece that you want to point out?
Well, I do have a couple of other pieces of election integrity legislation. One of them is geared at voter rolls, and so I personally experienced the bloat in our voter rolls. In Louisiana and across the country, you have people that rent properties, so they move into a little area, they rent, they end up on the voter rolls there, they move away, and their name remains on the voter rolls. Okay, so they have to, until they renew their driver's license and answer the questions properly, which they may or may not, they're remaining in Turkey Creek on our voter rolls. Well, bad actors, and they did this in my case, incentivize them to come back. I had people as far as Alabama come back and vote in my election. And so they basically incentivize them to come back. They vote, they leave, they go home, and then the people of that governing body, that town, are left with the consequences of those actions. So what my bill does is allow for data sharing. Having ran a water system, I could see who lived and didn't live in Turkey Creek, who should have been voting and should not have been voting, but I couldn't use that information in court. So what I'm doing is allowing for the Secretary of State and the registrars of voters to be able to extract data from municipal and government-owned water and utility systems to be able to purify the rolls to find out who actually lives
I've heard
there.
about this legislation.
Yeah, it's another forward thinking. I know I went to a conference, FGA, which is a governmental accountability group, and they were talking about data sharing with the U.S. Postal, which we already do, and they said data sharing is going to be a really, really effective tool in curbing bloated voter rolls. And I said, I have an idea. I've been thinking about this since
Ding.
2014.
Yeah.
So I pitched it to them, and they were like, "Yes, I mean that would be great. 'Cause
Right.
it's closest to home.
Right.
You know if you turn the water off and if people move out and turn it on for someone else.
Exactly. Right.
So we'll see what happens with that.
Anybody else's legislation that you're supporting or that you want to see go through, or anything else?
There's some really good pieces of legislation. Talking about water infrastructure. Fred Mills has a great piece on grading water systems. There are governing bodies out there. This happens more frequently than not, where they're bringing in money, they're selling a product, right, water, and they're generating revenue, and then they're transferring that revenue out for maybe recreation and using it for street lights or Christmas lights or whatever, splash pads,
Right.
and they're not putting it on preventive maintenance in their water system. And then they show up to the legislature and they have this colossal problem because their water system's crumbling. Well, they've used all their money for things other than what it was supposed to be used for.
Right.
So Fred Mills has a great piece. I've co-authored it. The broadband initiatives, Representative Dizitel is working to create a grant program with the federal dollars that are coming down to geared towards connecting the digital divide. And I just think, again, we're at a pivotal time because there's all these federal dollars coming in, and we actually, and I'm happy about, and that I'm sad about, because we're leveraging our great grandkids' futures on these federal dollars.
On a federal level, right?
Yeah. So that from that aspect, it's really scary, but they're coming irregardless, and so we have an opportunity to really bridge some divides like the digital divides and invest in infrastructure. And we'll never have that opportunity again. So I'm just hopeful and prayerful that this legislature, and then not only that, the governing bodies that are getting direct money from the federal government, that they use their dollars to correct problems that have ailed them for years.
Yeah.
If not, we're going to be talking about the same problems. The money will be gone 5 years from now.
I'm glad you brought up about it's kind of the bittersweetness of it is that it helps our great grandchildren be taxed on a federal level. But if forward-thinking legislators like what you're doing and or like you and what others are doing, use this money that it's coming down the pike anyway, like you said anyway, to build our infrastructures, improve our schools, improve with this one-time money, make room for small businesses to grow, build an environment where they can flourish. Well, then in the future, when our great-grandchildren are faced with having to repay it, they're going to have the tools to do so. They're going to have education. They're going to have better business opportunities. Yeah. They're going to have the roads. They're going to have all the puzzle pieces all fit into place to be able to help them be able to have the money to pay that back.
Yeah, we want to use those dollars for real projects that'll offer real solutions for our people. And so we have to be careful that it doesn't end up in, bureaucracy and growing government, and then the money's gone. One thing I do want to say is probably the biggest problem that we have right now in the state is a workforce problem. And I just posted that on my Facebook page when I was promoting the new restaurant relief program, which I'm passionate about because the restaurant industry has been hit so hard. I'm just concerned. I feel like we keep putting Band-Aids on an issue. We can send as much money as we want to restaurants, but if they don't have the people, if they don't have the people to work to produce their product, then it's just money in the bank. I mean, they can't do anything.
Exactly.
So we've got to, as a legislature and as a state, address the need for workers, for workforce within our businesses, because
Okay.
our businesses will close if they don't have
Right.
the hands and
Exactly.
feet.
Exactly.
Yes. And
So
that's
what's
happening.
what's the plan, or what's the
Well,
thought?
Senator Mike Reese has legislation to address unemployment, but I think that we've got to get people off of unemployment
Yeah.
that don't need to be on unemployment. I know it's comfortable, it's nice to get
Right.
a mailbox money, but that just means that your businesses, eventually you're going to have to go back to work,
Yeah.
and there may not be businesses for you to go back to work at when the time comes.
Pandemic's on its way down. We
Yeah.
need to start, getting people back to work. And,
Yeah.
and I like, again, it's that forward thinking that, it sounds to me like you're doing it in a very considerate, passionate way to be able to find the people that, can go back to work, and
We
separate them
need
from the
them.
people that, can't, or, their industries are still closed down, but find those people that can get back to work.
Yeah.
I like that. Well, in closing, is there anything else that you want to say before we wrap it up?
Well, I do want to say thank you for listening. I hope that you've enjoyed my rambling. I've kind of given you a overview of who I am and what I'm doing. I would encourage you, if you want to reach out to me, if you have issues, even issues that could turn into good legislation. I feel like best legislation comes from the people that are in the trenches. We can sit here in Baton Rouge and kind of think, what's ailing our people.
Right.
But they know what's ailing them.
Yeah, exactly.
They know. So if you need anything, if you have ideas, if there's something that we can help with, my email is sen28@legis.la.gov. We'd love to hear from you. I know that I represent 5 parishes,
Turkey Creek.
but I feel like I am Louisiana. I feel like I represent the whole state, and
Yeah, you do.
We share alike.
I like that.
Yeah. Well,
Senator
thank you for having
Cloud.
me.
Well, no, you're welcome, and no, thank you, Senator Cloud, for Heather Cloud, for being on here. But thank you most for watching out for the people of Louisiana. Thank you for being a watchdog, and thank you for being on my show. Once again, I really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank y'all.
Everybody else, please, as I always like to say, share. Please visit Senator Heather Cloud's site also. You'll find some good things on there. But and of course, not only share it, but remember, all my shows are on a podcast at William Wallace, WALLIS for America. And you can find that on any podcast player. And again, like our pages and share the news with some people about the good things that our legislation and people like Senator Heather Cloud are doing. Thank you all so much, and have a great day.